the United States has rejected a new Iranian proposal aimed at ending the ongoing conflict, with President Donald Trump saying the naval blockade on Iran will continue until Tehran agrees to a nuclear deal.
We're having talks with them now, and we're not flying anymore with 18-hour flights every time we want to see a piece of paper. We're doing it telephonically, and it's very nice. I make a call, or I have my people make a call, and you know the answer. I always like face-to-face. I consider it better. But when you have to fly 18 hours every time you want to have a meeting, and you know what the meeting's all about, and you know they're going to give you a piece of paper that you don't like before you even leave, it's ridiculous. They've come a long way. The question is whether or not they're going to go far enough. So at this moment, there will never be a deal unless they agree that there will be no nuclear weapons.
Speaking to Axios, Trump said the blockade had been somewhat more effective than the bombing and warned that conditions for Iran could become worse. He said Iran wanted the blockade lifted, but stressed that Washington would not ease pressure because the United States did not want Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. According to reports, the Iranian proposal was passed through Pakistan and included red lines on nuclear issues and the Strait of Hormuz. The plan reportedly proposed that Tehran would ease restrictions on the Strait, while Washington would lift its retaliatory blockade as broader negotiations continued over Iran's nuclear program. However, the proposal was rejected, and reports suggest a new offer may now be under consideration. Meanwhile, the Washington Post reported that the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier is expected to leave the Middle East and begin its return home in the coming days. The move would end a 10-month deployment for roughly 4,500 sailors, though it would also reduce U.S. military firepower in the region as peace talks between Washington and Tehran remain stalled. Iranian officials continue to criticize the blockade. Oil Minister Mohsen Paknejad said Iran's fuel supply and distribution systems remain stable despite U.S. restrictions on Iranian ports. Parliament Speaker Bagher Ghalibaf accused the United States of trying to weaken Iran through economic pressure, naval blockades, and media campaigns. Ghalibaf said the enemy had entered a new phase aimed at creating internal divisions and damaging Iran from within. He called for national unity, describing it as the only solution to counter foreign pressure. Trump also discussed the Iran conflict with Russian President Vladimir Putin following Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi's recent visit to St. Petersburg. Speaking at the Oval Office, Trump said Putin had expressed interest in helping with Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. However, Trump said he would rather see Russia focus on ending the war in Ukraine. The U.S. president also warned that the naval blockade could continue for months. According to a U.S. administration official, Trump discussed measures with oil executives that could allow the blockade to remain in place while limiting the impact on American consumers. In a social media post, Trump wrote that Iran better get smart soon and shared a mocked-up image of himself carrying a rifle in front of explosions with the slogan "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Iran has maintained a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz since the U.S. and Israel launched the war 2 months ago. The waterway is considered a critical route for global oil and gas shipments, and the restrictions have caused major disruptions in global energy markets. Iran's economy has also come under pressure, with the Iranian rial falling to historic lows against the US dollar. Tehran warned on Wednesday that continued US blockading of Iran-linked vessels could lead to what it called unprecedented military action. While Washington insists Iran cannot be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons, Tehran continues to maintain that its nuclear program is peaceful. At a White House state dinner attended by Britain's King Charles III, Trump claimed Iran had been militarily defeated and repeated that Iran would never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. However, an Iranian army spokesman told state television that Tehran did not consider the war to be over and said Iran had no trust in America. The spokesman said Iran still had many cards left to use and claimed the country had developed new tools and methods of fighting based on lessons from previous conflicts. Regional diplomacy also continued. Oman's foreign ministry said Foreign Minister Bad al-Busaidi held a phone call with United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Both sides stressed the importance of restoring maritime security and ensuring the smooth flow of global trade under international law. He also called on all parties to show flexibility and prioritize common interests in order to reach practical solutions. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said President Putin warned Trump against any renewed military action in Iran. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said Putin cautioned that further attacks by the United States or Israel would have damaging consequences not only for Iran and its neighbors but also for the wider international community. Oil prices continued to rise as concerns grew that supply disruptions from the Middle East could last longer. Reuters reported that Brent crude and U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures both extended gains as talks to end the conflict remained deadlocked.